Find out more and head on over to supertalktv.com. You'll see I'm not alone in the studio today. In fact, I have a recurring guest, Dr. Grace Sturdivant of OtoPro. She is passionate about hearing health, and since the last time we saw her, her business has sort of evolved, if that's a good way to say it.
That's a great way to say it.
And I love this. I love having folks' small business stories back and sort of catching up. I love that we've been around 5 years, which is long enough for small businesses to sort of adapt and change. We couldn't figure out exactly when you were here, maybe 2018.
That's right. I'm thinking maybe 2019.
And you had your business, OtoPro, where you were a concierge
hearing service.
And
right.
so how's that? So I guess catch us up first. How were you? And now, how have you transitioned?
Well, just to give you the brief history, I was practicing audiology in the ear, nose, and throat department at the University of Mississippi Medical Center for years before moving into a kind of a part-time research setting. But all the while, my clinical niche evolved to become the area of cognitive decline, different forms of dementia, and hearing loss, and the negative synergy between those two things. And with that, I became very compelled to help my own friends and family get quality, custom-fit hearing protection. The only problem was even my own father refused to make an appointment and sit through the medical model where you sit in the waiting room and, spend time doing that. So I thought, well, I'll start a business and I'll start going out to where people are and providing these services and making it just irrefusably easy for people to get these products and get good recommendations. And so I started doing that just as a passion project on the side, never intending for this thing to grow like it has. And I think when I was last here, I had just begun. I was traveling some to fit groups, and I was doing a lot.
Pre-pandemic, yeah.
Pre-pandemic, I was going out to sporting clay tournaments and setting up a vendor booth and molding people's ears and giving them pros and cons of all these different models. Mold their ears on site and then drop ship directly to them and follow up remotely. So that allowed me to expand nationally. And I believe it was after I was here last that we launched our e-commerce platform through the website. So now when people check out through the website, we then send an email to you with the local clinic information in your area, where we now are at 207 clinics and counting every day, where we're adding these locations across the country, Canada, and now Australia, where we can send you into a local audiologist practice, have your ears molded. You can go ahead and get a baseline hearing evaluation. And then we send you with the prepaid mailing label to then take those ear mold impressions of your ears, drop them in the mail for us to then oversee the production of your custom hearing protection products of a range of prices and technology features.
How important is it that it's custom?
It's, when you're looking at hearing protection, the fit of the protection product is the most important aspect. Whether you add Bluetooth or specialty filters is really icing on the cake. But what we need to make sure of is that we have a perfect seal of your ear canal with no air leakage. And there are very few people who can obtain that kind of a seal through a non-custom product. There are some non-custom products that are better than others. A good example is a foam earplug. And oftentimes when you see people wearing foam earplugs, they're sticking way out of their ears. And to wear them correctly and receive the benefit from them, you have to roll them up very small, put them all the way deep in your ear canal so that you're almost coughing. It tickles the back of your throat, and then hold it in place for a good 30 seconds to let it expand.
Yeah, my husband doesn't
completely. Do that. Then those foam earplugs can be useful, but then as you move your head around, they kind of start working their way out. So we do still stand by the fact that custom fit is ideal, especially when you're a hunter and a shooter like so many of our clients, because as you're moving your head to mount your gun, a non-custom product is more likely to be moving around.
So you brought a term to us last time on Good Things that I remember, and it's hearing health, which I'm sure has been thrown around, but as someone who appreciates good health, I just never really thought about our hearing health. What are some of the things we don't think about that impacts the health of our hearing? Or maybe I should say, why should we be concerned about the health of our hearing?
Well, I'll start with kind of why should we be concerned? Hearing health is brain health, and for the reason
I never thought of it that way.
We hear with our brains. the pieces on your side of your head that hold up your sunglasses are just the transducers that are funneling the sound and then sending it up the brainstem to be processed in your brain. But it's brain stimulation. Auditory sensation and input is brain stimulation. And one of the things I was looking at in research before starting OtoPro was how that auditory deprivation in the brain starts the brain reorganizing, which we think we're still studying whether or not that hearing aid intervention and reintroducing that stimulation to the brain can help delay the onset or slow the rate of different forms of dementia. But in looking at that and that suggestive body of research that at this point is still fairly inconclusive, that's when I became compelled not just to go forth with the message that's often seen in the medical community of treat early, diagnose and treat early with hearing aids, but to take that a step further or a step earlier and prevent and delay the hearing loss that leads to that sensory deprivation in the first place.
Because that starts early, or can start early.
Oh, it can start very early. I mean, hearing loss is not an old person problem. I mean, first of all, we see children every day that are born with different forms of hearing loss, that have different types of conductive hearing loss that can develop. But what I'll say is, the brain stimulation is the most important piece. And then what leads to that deprivation is a combination of how loud things are and how long you're exposed to it. So, the current OSHA guidelines, it's like 80 to 85 decibels over an 8-hour workday is considered permissible. So
how do we measure that?
A sound level meter would give you an exact measurement, but like my voice at a conversational level is around 60 decibels. When you're shouting, it's about 75. Most people reach a level of discomfort around 100 decibels. But that prolonged exposure.
So if you're in a work area where you have to shout to ask your boss, is it lunchtime?
Exactly.
Or to hand you the tool or to conversate back and forth.
Yes.
Then that's what you're saying. That would be a prolonged sort of heavy machinery.
That's right. But and we have those workday guidelines by OSHA, but what they don't take into consideration is that you may leave your office and you may go to a live music venue, or you might go mow the lawn, or you might just be jamming out to your favorite songs in your car like I do. But all of that contributes to your overall noise dose for the day. And as the sound level gets louder, your permissible time exposure before damage starts gets smaller. So for 160 decibel gunshot, we can assume that there may be some instantaneous damage that happens at that point.
And if you are gearing up for your sports season, or you're just out shooting clay, or you're just out, enjoying the great outdoors, if this is something you do on the regular, but then you don't take care of your hearing health, you're going to see hearing loss quicker. Is that
That's
what I'm
right.
hearing you say?
That is what you're hearing me say, yes.
Or the ringing in the ear.
The ringing in the ear.
I'm hearing you.
Yes, the ringing in the ear is such a hot topic. And I've actually, I wrote a pretty decent, I hate to brag on myself, but a pretty decent overview of why we have ringing, where it comes from, some things you can do about it. That's linked on the press page of my website. I wrote that for a magazine called Porch and Prairie. But that overview of just explaining to people the pathophysiology, how does this ringing occur, and why did I used to only have it occasionally, and now all of a sudden it won't stop. Why is that? And I encourage people to go read through that article so that we don't take our entire time here talking about tinnitus. But that knowledge can be empowering, because there are some kind of lifestyle ways that you can try to adjust and help manage it.
Because I feel like there's those listening to Good Things right now, Grace, and going, oh, shoot, I missed the boat. I'm in my 60s or my 70s or, mid 50s or whatever. And is that true? I mean, is it ever too late?
No, I don't think it's ever too late to start protecting. I'll tell you, if you can still communicate verbally, then let's protect the hearing that you have left. Now, sure, once, just from my time in the audiology clinic, once your hearing gets to a point where hearing aids can no longer be useful, then we start talking about a cochlear implant. So in that sort of a sense, a traditional hearing aid might be something that you outgrow. Still, for my clients who are shooting very high-powered firearms that have these ported barrels and muzzle brakes, then I want to make sure that we have good hearing protection on you, just so that we don't cause damage to the little middle ear bones, and so you don't blow your eardrums out, the physical structures.
And then also for all the kids that we enjoy taking into the great outdoors, we want to make sure that we have them protected as well. We've got more with Grace coming up next here channel, and if you're over at supertalktv.com, you'll also see I am not alone. We're continuing our conversation with founder of OtoPro. It's Dr. Grace Sturdivant. Am I getting the names and everything right?
You're getting it right.
I'm doing it good.
And I just love that I just did a selfie for my Instagram stories, and then I realized I'm also on video right now.
That's okay. They probably got a good laugh and everything is good. But I love that you're passionate about hearing health. As someone who's passionate about overall health, I think there are pieces to our health that we often forget about, and until it's too late. And you were sharing about thinking of it in terms of a sunburn with our hearing health. And specifically, I'm thinking, okay, you went out for a hunt or you're out practicing and it's those loud shots, those over your normal, or you went to a concert that you left and you're like wiggling your ear or whatever it may be.
It feels kind of stuffy, your ears are ringing.
Shooting fireworks, out in the county or whatever it may be. So what's actually happening? Why should we rethink that to maybe like a sunburn?
Well, when you think about your cochlea, or that little snail shell shaped organ of hearing.
Good job. I'm not going to try.
That's a tongue twister. But if you were to unroll that, there's these little tiny hair cells that are coded for pitch. And the ones that are coded for the highest pitches are hit the first and the hardest by the sound pressure that's coming through your ear. So when you are at a loud concert, or if you've been out shooting all day, those hair cells are weakened. And if you picture them kind of on high alert, and then they kind of bend over a little bit, so they're not sending as much of a signal to the brain, that triggers a ringing sensation. And then so many times, as much as they can, those hair cells will recover and stand back up again and start delivering that sound back to the brain. But you've undoubtedly weakened them every time that happens. So years later, or maybe you've just done the job that one time, the ringing won't go away and it becomes permanent. Then it becomes much more
of an issue.
And
we don't want that. We're trying to prevent that. I had mentioned too, kids. I mean, obviously, we're big on getting our kids, the next generation, out into the outdoors. I think that's a wonderful thing. I know you enjoy that growing up, being from the Delta. So what age can you, first, hearing prevention, smart hearing prevention for kids of all ages. But then at what point can you gift or thinking about getting younger adults or older teens that true gift of hearing health?
Right. I like to see young children in an over-the-ear muff so that I can see that their ear is fully encased. Like I mentioned before, we want to make sure there's no air leakage around the protection product. And the best way to do that objectively as the care provider is to make sure the ear is inside the muff with no leakage. So I do like to do that. Then when young shooters, let's just say outdoorsmen, come up to me and they're interested in hearing protection, I compare their height to their parents' height. And once you've reached your full skeletal growth, we can be pretty sure that your ears aren't going to change significantly in a short period of time, at least. So if it looks like you've still got a decent amount of growing to do, then I'm probably going to encourage you, just for the financial impact, to not proceed with custom until you've finished growing. Because if you hit a growth spurt, those custom fit products get a little loose, then I feel very responsible for that. Right. We want to make sure that we maintain that airtight seal. So
what's the benefit of having the custom versus just going with the earmuffs for the rest of your life?
Well, the earmuffs aren't bad at all.
They're just bulky.
They're just bulky. They're hot. They interfere with your gun mount. The best possible thing to do is to put a custom fit product underneath a set of muffs. And that's what I recommend, for example, at indoor ranges, because that's going to give you an additional 20 decibels or so of noise reduction to get you up to about the 50 decibel noise reduction mark.
So you wouldn't be able to hear a pin drop?
Well, it's surprising how well you can hear through the bones of your skull. We study a lot in audiology about bone conduction, and the bones of your body are excellent transducers for sound. So I tell people often, if I'm going to guarantee that you're not going to obtain any hearing loss from these activities, I would have to put you in a full helmet and preferably a full bodysuit to keep the bones of your body from transducing that sound up to your hearing nerve.
Or just you'd have to live in a bubble.
That's right. My job is to give people the most realistic tools tools that they will actually use, that actually fit their budget, that they will actually wear, because that's going to be the best protection, is the product that you'll really wear. And, one thing I would love to mention is that, especially since we talked about custom versus non-custom, I did launch a product just this last week, which is a non-custom fit. And that's in order to introduce a lower entry-level price point, because I understand that there is a huge need that people have for hearing protection, and not everybody can afford custom. So I'm using the same very high-end filters that I put in some of the custom products that are really popular into a non-custom sleeve with different size options, so you can find the option that best suits you. But we encourage everybody to consider, when the time is right, we allow you to upgrade to the custom fit portion.
Is hearing loss sort of like high blood pressure or anything else? You get used to living at an uncomfortable, I know there are instances where you can have a traumatic experience, like a car wreck or, a gun really go off right beside your, whatever it may be, and then you walk away and it's never the same. But I feel like for most of us, and I think, is that why we blame it on age? Because it's gradual?
You blame it on age because it's gradual. You blame it on the young people who don't articulate and they mumble when they talk, But in actuality, you've just gotten so used to this different, it's like you're hearing through this lens of a hearing loss that's different. And oftentimes after someone experiences wearing, say, a hearing protection product that has amplification built in so that you're protected, but that when there's not loud noise around, you're amplifying what's going on around you. And a lot of times when people experience that, they realize what they've been missing. And they will ask someone that's with them, oh, can you hear that? Can you hear those birds? Can you hear that gravel, those leaves rustling? And then they think, oh my goodness, I didn't know it was this bad. So it can be a great gateway to get people into quality day-to-day hearing technology.
I'm also going back to, Grace, you talking about the link between our hearing loss or hearing health and dementia and our brain, that we hear with our brains. I'll never forget that. That was a really great, it was an aha moment for me. I never really thought about it that way. If you have a family history of dementia or Alzheimer's, right? I mean, that's one of those things that, you think about, just like if you have diabetes or heart disease or whatever it may be. You try to start thinking about things earlier in terms of prevention. So if you are someone who has a family history of those type of chronic ailments, should you really I know we all should be taking care of our hearing health, but could that be another, tool in your tool belt for prevention later as you age? Because that does come with age, typically.
I believe that it is a great tool. Just like kind of you hear the old adage of working crossword puzzles to keep your brain engaged, staying socially active, protecting your hearing, even without the body of research that I mentioned earlier, keeping your hearing healthy allows you to stay socially active and connected with other people, which is steeped in literature on how that can be protective and preventative against dementia. So, we want to keep you fully engaged and living life to its fullest and enjoying the things that you've always enjoyed, not withdrawing from activities because of a hearing loss, which is oftentimes what we see. So absolutely, taking care of your hearing and making sure that you keep all of that intact, not only for your brain health, but for your social connection with people.
It doesn't matter whether it's the yin or the yang. I mean, they both, it's
right.
all sort of
It all works together.
It all works together. Bubba from Meridian said, are bone induction headphones better or worse for us?
They're neither better nor worse. With bone conduction or with air conduction headphones, you need to kind of watch your volume. There are certain, like if you have an iPhone, there are certain settings you can have where it'll give you an alert. Oftentimes, I will have people pair a bone conduction headset with a custom fit earplug so that they can get Bluetooth streaming capability at a lower price point than some of our high-end hearing protection options that have Bluetooth in them.
What is bone conduction?
Okay, bone conduction headsets.
Because now I'm thinking I hear with my skull and everything else.
I'm just blowing your mind right now. No, so a bone conduction headset, the first brand that comes to mind is Aftershocks. I often see them as I'm walking through the airport. These are headsets you see people wearing where their ear canals stay wide open, and the headset has these little pieces that kind of push against your head in front of and behind of your ear, and you're streaming Bluetooth, or maybe you're plugged into audio, but it's basically an earphone or an earbud that doesn't go into your ear. It sits on the outside of your ear. And the point is to allow you to go running or to be walking through an airport and streaming music that no one else can hear, but staying aware of your surroundings. I can put a custom fit earplug in your ear that you wear with that so that you can be protected and streaming Bluetooth at the same time.
So much good stuff with Dr. Grace. We have more questions from Carol and Starkville. We'll get to that coming up next with Dr. Grace. She's the founder of OtoPro. Day. And it's been a good day hanging out with Dr. Grace. You got some fans over on the C Spire text line that says, oh, she's a great person, very knowledgeable. That was a Sharpie in Wayne County.
That's sweet.
And
Thank
other
you.
coming. But I will say, your passion, I keep saying that, for hearing health is inspiring, to me, and the fact that you use that as a small business and how you're also trying to connect individuals with their local audiologists. Like that's your business model, is to give back to other small businesses. And, in a very, forward way. I mean, it's not necessarily charity, but you are making these connections with healthcare providers. So how important is it if we don't have an audiologist that we're connected to, like we have a dentist and we have, obstetrician, we have a hairdresser, we have all those important things, but not many of us have audiologists.
I know. And in my dream world, part of the legacy that I would like to leave as an audiologist is to elevate the field of audiology as a whole. I firmly believe that audiologists should be the gatekeepers to hearing health care. And there's a lot of legislation coming out, I think January of 2023, about over-the-counter hearing aids and, other ways of going about getting hearing aids and amplification that don't go through the credentialed audiology practice, to get that full diagnostic hearing test and to be guided through with prescription levels for hearing. I mean, we are highly specialized. Most of us today have a 4-year doctorate degree in audiology, where we are so highly trained on all the possibly medically treatable conditions. It's very important to go to find a qualified audiologist to consult with about your hearing. And that is something that I truly hope to be able to leave as a legacy, is that people have an audiologist just like they have a dentist or an eye doctor. We should be taking care of our ears and getting those annual hearing screenings and tests, and then intervening early if there's a problem.
And you've already connected how many to OtoPro?
Oh, I mean, we already have over 207 plus clinic locations across the country. Now we're in Canada and Australia as well. So but we're on the right track, and it is an upward trajectory.
That's pretty cool. Okay, Carol in Starkville, can you have a hearing loss gene?
There are genes that are associated with hearing loss, yes. It's been a long time since I took my genetics class, but yes, you can have a gene that makes you more predispositioned to have hearing loss. There is also, yes, the short answer is yes.
And Mailman Clayton said, joined late, sorry. Can you address the dealing with chronic tinnitus? And I'll tell you, Mailman, and anyone else joining late, I will link that article in our Good Things Facebook group, because you had already mentioned a great resource for that. Yes. So I'm not skipping you, Clayton, but we'll make sure that that you get that.
And on the hearing loss gene, I will add that most children who are born deaf are born to hearing parents, which is very interesting. And I'll say on that note, I mean, that's a great way for me to plug my work with Magnolia Speech School here in our area, where when those children are born with a significant hearing loss or any type of communication or language impairment, Magnolia Speech School works with families starting at birth to give the tools and resources and then the early literacy and spoken language that those children need to be able to enter mainstream classrooms completely unhindered by this problem, so that they can go about and reach their full potential in life.
Because you hear with your brain.
Because you hear with your brain.
Oh my God, learn something new. Chris from Columbus, 64 years old, firearms, industrial machinery, drums, electric guitar, loud music all my life. So I have like white noise not ringing. He said, did you live with it? Or is what would, and then again,
it can sound so different for different people. Right. Some people even hear music. Wouldn't that be nice? I worked with a patient one time who heard what sounded like a choir singing as her ringing. And I would encourage anyone who's experiencing pervasive ringing to get a full hearing test in an audiology clinic. We can refer you to one if you need help with that. Just shoot us a contact inquiry on our website, and we'll work with you to make sure that you get all the testing that you need to make sure that there's nothing that needs to be treated and that you are aware of all available options. And then for that particular gentleman, I would strongly encourage you to protect what you've got. And so let us know, and we'd be glad to find the most appropriate product products to fit your needs.
Delay
Right.
anymore, or stop, prevent any
That's
more
right.
loss. Jeff in Oxford, I'm curious about this. Should you routinely have your ears washed out? He said he's heard both.
Some people need to, some people don't. For most of us, all you need to do is rinse your ears with warm water every time you shower. And for most of us, that is enough. Using Q-tips more often than not, is pushing a little bit of earwax further down in your ear canal every time, even though it might be satisfying. You might think you got a lot of stuff out on that Q-tip. You're pushing a little bit further in. And definitely anytime you go see any physician, have them look carefully in your ears. It's amazing how many primary care physicians or others don't do good otoscopy, thorough otoscopy, which is what it's called when we look in your ears, essentially, and clean out anything that's there.
This is not on the text line. This is my personal. The putting the cone and lighting it on fire looks so.
The ear candling.
The ear candling. Does that work? Is that like a magic trick?
It works, but I'll say it works a little too well. At the medical center, there were a few times that I saw people whose ear canals set up with some gnarly infections because that ear candling is also stripping all of the natural oils.
So no.
Right.
So no magic tricks at home.
You're supposed to have snot in your nose, and you're supposed to have some earwax in your ears. It's just the way God made us.
It's just fascinating to watch. I mean, I haven't ever done it. I've been too scared. I'd light my hair on fire. That would be that person. That I'm sorry, I was trying to clean my ears. Now my head's on fire. Stephanie and Pope said, do any insurances or most cover hearing devices? Do they?
Some do. Every plan is very different. So I would strongly encourage you to check with your individual policy.
That would be too. And Jason said, hearing loss is terrible from the Army, but it can be expensive to see a specialist and for that. So do you need a referral for an audiologist, or can you? But most, I guess, check with your insurance
Check
first.
with your insurance. Oftentimes you can go to an audiologist directly. When you call them, they will let you know if you need a referral. Oftentimes audiologists can be in-house with an ear, nose, and throat clinic, just like they are back at UMC where I practiced. And I speak so highly of that whole team. They are well-credentialed and know what they're doing. I would recommend any of those professionals. But at the VA, veterans have benefits, so I would encourage him to seek that out as well. They've earned that benefit.
They definitely. And you've earned your spot on a really nationally wide known podcast, which is Meat Eaters, and that is hosted by, what's his name?
Stephen Ranella.
How did that come about?
Stephen Ranella is a force to be reckoned with, and he is such a presence in the outdoors world. I've learned, I think I underestimated just how wide his reach is. He has followers all over the country, and he is an avid outdoorsman, the ultimate outdoorsman, conservationist. And I was introduced to him by another client that I had met. His name is Chef Jean Paul. He hosts a show called Duck Camp Dinners that is a contributor to the Meat Eater Enterprise, the Meat Eater also has a Netflix show, which is actually very entertaining to watch, even if you're not a hunter. But they hunt and fish and do outdoorsy things all over the place. Very entertaining and big personalities, but also very highly intelligent group of people. And on the podcast, it's a long podcast. Every episode is 2 hours, some odd long, and they talk about everything from current events to silly, funny topics, and then they have a little trivia show that's real whimsical and fun. And it was just a huge opportunity. I was introduced to Stephen Ranella by Chef Jean Paul. I flew up to Bozeman, Montana to meet with them and just to talk about hearing health. We weren't even discussing products. I wanted to talk to them about hearing health because they have such a platform to be able to influence people to be thinking about their hearing. And I had 20 minutes set aside to have a one-on-one conversation with Steve Ranella. And like 2.5 hours later, we decided we needed to continue the conversation on his podcast. And I'm honored to be providing hearing protection now to that whole team of people. I think one thing that really appeals to them is that OtoPro isn't just one brand or product, but when I've showed up with all the products to deliver to them, I think I had 4 different brands represented in my bag of things I had sourced and ordered depending on those individual needs. And so instead of just endorsing another product, what they're endorsing is the message of hearing health. And I think that's what really spoke to them. But the podcast was great. It was an awesome opportunity.
Which I think is cool. I follow them on Instagram, and one of the things that stick out the most was whoever lost 3 toes to not defrost. That would not be
Frostbite.
Frostbite. And I was like, how do we wind up in how do we get here with this? But we've got stick with us because we've got a little bit more with Dr. Grace. We'll get to your questions. Some of them are coming through on the text line coming up next. I hope you've enjoyed finding out more about hearing health today. I know we all need to leave with remembering that we hear with our brains.
Yes.
And don't delay. You can stop or prevent hearing loss no matter your age. Jason said his started as not being able to hear well with background noise, now ringing constantly. Something about eardrum not vibrating. Not much they can do about it. Inner ear hearing is perfect, so they say. And I know that can be very frustrating. And I think that's one of the things, even if you're at a point where you're frustrated with your hearing, it's the one, sorry, we will help you where you can. But if you're not, or if you've got, young teens or adults moving into it, you can educate them on taking care of their hearing health early, and they won't have to worry about all of that sort of later.
Right. Get started early, but it's not too late.
It's definitely.
That's what I would say, but it's not too late.
No, but also the importance of getting sort of started with it a little bit earlier. And too, as parents, just thinking about educating your kids, although they're going to roll their eyes at you and just like everybody else did, turn your music down. But you hear with your brain.
But I have so many great clients that are in their 20s, in their 30s, and it's because preventative care and kind of wellness is more of the norm for younger generations than it is for our age and older, to be quite honest. And especially, the ear level technology, a lot of younger people are used to wearing something in their ears all the time. So if I can give them an earplug that lets them stream music, then they're all about it.
That is true. It's very true. Carol in Starkville, any tool safe to use in excess wax removal besides the warm water or hydrogen peroxide to help with hearing? I'm trying to work with a 100-year-old at home.
Oh, I would definitely try an earwax removal kit. There's one I used to really recommend earwax drop called Debrox, Debrox, but I'm not seeing it on the market anywhere right now. The same active ingredients are available in the Max Wax Away product, MACK' Wax Away. And you can order a kit that also has a little syringe bulb. And with those active ingredients, you can put 5 or 6 drops in each ear canal, really let it sit in there. It kind of causes a foaming action as it's dissolving the earwax. And then you can use that bulb to suction it out.
Pretty cool. Okay, the last time you were here, we're trying to guess again, 2018, 2019, with the very beginning of OtoPro. And now what? We're 5 years? No, 3, 2, 4? I don't know.
It's all the time more. COVID messed it up. Yep.
So, and this is one thing I adore about Good Things is catching up with these small businesses that have sort of transformed or evolved over the years, and we get to catch up. So it's like, what's next, Grace? We'll keep you on this 3-year track and sort of get you back,
Let's check back in 3 years.
And check back. But do you have, you mentioned you're now international, and you've got 207 plus growing audiologists that are connected to OtoPro technologies. What's next?
I wish I knew. I am still doing the next right thing, and we're committed to continuing our customer service brand, where at our core, OtoPro is a customer service company, and we treat every single client with that same level of care, where if you have questions, we consult with you, we facilitate the whole process, and that's very important, that relational aspect, because every unique individual has different needs. So I'm committed to maintaining that. But how we grow and where we grow, I am continuing to, I won't say pivot, but I'll say evolve as the needs are presented to us. Right now I'm researching pilot options, as I've had just an influx recently of pilots who are looking for some specific features. So I'm trying to figure out how I can build a product that has exactly those features that pilots are looking for. So we'll see if that goes anywhere. Maybe not. But I'm wide open to the possibilities and very excited about the future.
How did you get into audiology?
Oh, interesting question. I thought I wanted to be a speech language pathologist like my mother. Darlene Gore, she is a very accomplished speech language pathologist audiologist, and I watched her and loved how much she was able to accomplish in her career while balancing being a mom and a wife. And I got started in those classes. Through those classes, undergraduate, I had to take some audiology classes. And in one of those classes, I watched a documentary about a little girl that was born deaf to hearing parents and received a cochlear implant. And the audiologist, about 2 weeks after the surgery, was working with the family to activate that implant. And at the moment that that implant was activated, this child was about to hear sound for the first time. And the audiologist asked everyone in the room to be quiet. And then she looked at the mom and she said, "Now, when I point to you, I want you to say her name." And the mom, who was standing behind the little girl, said her name, and her head just whipped around like it was on a swivel. Like, what was that? Of course, she had no meaning attached to that sound yet. That was going to be an ongoing process with learning to hear and learning to understand with our brains what that sensory input that was so new was looking like. But that moment where I watched that little girl, all of a sudden, the trajectory of her life was one where she could be mainstreamed and she could enjoy music and sound and verbal communication as much as I do. And that I was hooked.
You was hooked. And that's why we want you to prevent and protect and don't delay with your hearing health. Where do we go to find everything that you've shared with us?
OtoProTechnologies.com. OTOPRO Technologies.com. I also hang out on Instagram a lot. You can find me there, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm really trying to do better at Twitter.
Well, we'll see you back in 2025.
That's right.
If not before. But y'all stick with us. We got Sports Talk coming up next. Rhino and I will meet you back here tomorrow at 2. But until then, I hope you all find time for the good things.